Friday the 13th, released in 1980, is a seminal slasher film that has become a cultural phenomenon and a staple of the horror genre. Directed by Sean S. Cunningham and written by Victor Miller, the movie tells the story of a group of teenage camp counselors who are stalked and murdered one by a masked killer at Camp Crystal Lake. The movie begins with a prologue in 1958, where two summer camp counselors, Barry and Claudette, are murdered by an unknown assailant at Camp Crystal Lake. The story then jumps to the present day, where a young woman named Annie is heading to the same camp. Despite warnings from locals that the camp is cursed, Annie decides to go anyway. As Annie arrives at the camp, she meets a group of young adults who are refurbishing the facilities for the summer season. They soon begin to experience strange and terrifying events, including a series of gruesome murders. The soon group realizes that they are being stalked by a killer, but they don't know who or why. As the bodies pile up, the group tries to figure out what's going on and who's behind the murders. They discover that the camp has a dark history, including the drowning of a young boy in 1957. They also learn that the camp's owner, Steve, has been acting strangely and seems to know more than he's letting on. As the group tries to survive and uncover the truth, they are picked off one by the killer. The tension builds as they try to stay alive and figure out who is behind the murders. In the end, it is revealed that the killer is Mrs. Voorhees, the mother of the boy who drowned in 1957. She has been seeking revenge against the camp and its occupants for what she believes is their carelessness and lack of attention to her son's death. The film culminates in a climactic showdown between Alice and Mrs. Voorhees, with Alice eventually killing her with a machete. However, as Alice is rowing away from the camp in a canoe, she is attacked by Jason Voorhees, Mrs. Voorhees' son, who has been dead all along. The film ends with Alice waking up in a hospital, only to realize she had just imagined everything. The film's ending is intentionally ambiguous, leaving the audience wondering if Jason really did die or if he will return in future films. The film's success spawns a franchise with multiple sequels and remakes, cementing its place as a horror classic. The making of Friday the 13th, released in 1980, was a collaborative effort between director Sean Cunningham and writer Victor Miller. Cunningham approached Miller with the idea of creating a horror film inspired by the success of John Carpenter's Halloween 1978. Miller was tasked with writing a script that could capitalize on the popularity of the slasher genre, and he drew inspiration from classic horror films such as Psycho and Peeping Tom. The film was shot on location at a local camp in Hardwick, New Jersey, a Boy Scout camp that still operates today. The camp's owners were generous enough to allow the filmmakers to use their grounds, but only if they made a significant donation to the Boy Scouts of America. The cast and crew stayed at local hotels during filming, but some of the more dedicated members, including special effects artist Tom Savini and makeup artist Tazo N. Stravakis, chose to stay on site at the camp. Betsy Palmer, who played Pamela Voorhees, the mother of Jason Voorhees, has spoken publicly about her initial reluctance to take on the role. She only agreed to participate because she desperately needed a new car at the time. Initially, she called the script a piece of shit, but over the years, she grew to appreciate the film's success and even made an appearance at fan conventions and in documentaries to discuss it. The film's score was composed by Harry Manfredini, who came up with the now iconic Kiki Ki Ma 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 vocalizations that have become synonymous with the franchise. Manfredini also provided his own voice for the score. Friday the 13th was filmed on a budget of $5,500,000 and went on to earn $39.7 million at the domestic box office. Its worldwide gross was $59.7 million. The film's success can be attributed to its well-crafted marketing campaign, which included a full-page ad in Variety magazine featuring the title Friday the 13th without any additional information. This piqued interest and generated buzz around the film. Tom Savini, known for his work on George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, 1978, was brought on board as a special effects artist due to his impressive makeup work in that film. Harry Crosby, who played Bill in Friday the 13th, is actually the son of Bing Crosby. The film's shooting locations were largely confined to northern New Jersey, with scenes shot at real locations such as Hartung's General Store in Hope, New Jersey, and Moravian Cemetery in Hope, New Jersey. Crystal Lake is actually Sand Pond, located near the Delaware River and bordering eastern Pennsylvania. Friday the 13th has become a horror icon, spawning numerous sequels and remakes. The film's legacy can be seen in its influence on other slasher films and its continued popularity among horror fans. The Camp Red film still celebrates its connection to the franchise with a wall of memorabilia honoring its role as the setting for Pamela Voorhees' infamous killing spree. Friday the 13th is a seminal slasher film that has spawned a franchise and become a cultural phenomenon. At its core, the film is a revenge thriller that explores the themes of trauma, grief, and the devastating consequences of neglect and abandonment. The story begins with the death of a young boy named Jason Voorhees, who drowns at Camp Crystal Lake due to the negligence of camp counselors. The death of Jason sets off a chain reaction of events that lead to the murder spree committed by his mother, Pamela Voorhees. Pamela's actions are driven by her overwhelming grief and anger towards the counselors who failed to save her son. Her behavior is a manifestation of her own trauma and desperate attempt to right the perceived wrongs of the past. The film also explores the theme of small town secrets and the consequences of keeping them hidden. The residents of Camp Crystal Lake have known about Jason's death for years, but they have chosen to keep it under wraps, afraid of being ostracized or losing their reputation. This secrecy has created a toxic environment where no one feels responsible for what happened, allowing Pamela's actions to go unchecked. The counselors who are targeted by Pamela are also symbolic representations of the consequences of their own negligence. They are naive and careless, prioritizing their own desires over the well-being of their charges. Their lack of responsibility and accountability mirrors Pamela's own feelings of abandonment and betrayal. By targeting them, Pamela is punishing those who failed to protect her son and are now enjoying themselves at his expense. Furthermore, the film critiques the notion of female sexuality and its connection to vulnerability. The counselors who die in the film are often depicted as sexualized and vulnerable, with their deaths serving as a form of punishment for their perceived promiscuity. This subtext speaks to the societal pressures placed on women during the 1970s and 1980s, where female sexuality was often seen as something to be controlled and regulated. Friday the 13th is more than just a slasher film. It's an exploration of themes that continue to resonate today. The film delves into the devastating consequences of trauma, grief, and neglect, highlighting the ways in which these experiences can shape our actions and motivations. Pamela Voorhees' character is a complex representation of maternal love turned toxic, driven by a desire for revenge against those who failed to protect her son. The film's exploration of small-town secrets, female sexuality, and accountability continues to influence horror cinema today, making it a landmark film in the genre. In Friday the 13th, several horror tropes effectively contribute to its lasting impact on the slasher genre. The final girl trope is exemplified by Alice, who embodies resilience and moral superiority amid chaos. While her friends engage in reckless behavior, Alice's survival hinges on her innocence and quick thinking, ultimately positioning her as the lone hero who confronts the malevolent force, thus establishing a pattern for future slasher films. The film also prominently features teenagers in danger, showcasing a cast of young characters who engage in activities deemed irresponsible, such as drinking and casual sex. The trope suggests a moralistic narrative where those who partake in risky or immoral actions face direct consequences, reinforcing societal anxieties about youth behavior in the early 1980s. The unseen killer further heightens the film's tension, with the identity and motivations of the murderer initially shrouded in mystery. This creates a palpable sense of dread. Viewers are left guessing who the killer is and what drives them, allowing suspense to build organically. The anticipation of the next kill creates an atmosphere of fear that permeates the narrative. Finally, the film culminates in twists and final revelations, with the shocking revelation that the killer is Pamela Voorhees, seeking vengeance for her son Jason's death. The unexpected twist not only subverts viewers' expectations, but also deepens the story, adding an emotional layer to the horror and establishing a legacy where familial revenge plays a crucial role in the genre's future narratives. Altogether, those tropes combine to create a chilling experience, establishing conventions that would shape the countless horror films that followed, ensuring Friday the 13th endures as a seminal work within the genre. The legacy of Friday the 13th endures remarkably, having birthed numerous sequels, remakes, and reboots, most notably New Line Cinema's successful reboot in 2009. Jason Voorhees, the film's iconic character, has become a symbol of horror cinema, captivating audiences through various films, TV shows, and even comic books. As a landmark horror film, Friday the 13th has significantly influenced popular culture, utilizing innovative suspense and tension while exploring themes of innocence lost, grief, and trauma. Its impact can be seen in countless subsequent slasher films and horror movies, securing its status as a vital component of horror history. Even over 40 years after its release, the film remains relevant, resonating with modern audiences through its exploration of trauma and mortality. The character of Jason Voorhees continues to embody terror, making Friday the 13th a cultural phenomenon that endures well beyond its initial premiere. In recent years, a resurgence of interest in classic horror films like this has emerged, driven by nostalgia and an appreciation of their influence on contemporary horror. Consequently, Friday the 13th is celebrated not only for its horror legacy, but also for its broader impact on popular culture, as its iconic villain has been extensively parodied and referenced across various media. This enduring relevance ensures that Friday the 13th will continue to be regarded as an essential part of horror cinema for years to come. Friday the 13th is not only an important part of horror cinema history, but also a cultural touchstone that continues to influence popular culture today. Its themes of trauma and mortality continue to resonate with audiences around the world, and its iconic villain remains an enduring symbol of terror for generations of horror fans. As we look back on Friday the 13th's impact on popular culture, it becomes clear that it is more than just a slasher film. It's a cultural phenomenon that continues to shape our understanding of fear itself. As we wrap up our deep dive into the chilling legacy of 1980's Friday the 13th, it's clear that this film paved the way for the slasher genre, from its unforgettable final girl to the suspenseful twists that keep audiences on edge. If you enjoyed our analysis, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Celluloid Asylum for a more in-depth explorations of horror's finest. Next week, we'll be shifting gears to discuss James Wan's 2021 homage to the giallo genre, *Malignant*. This film brilliantly melds suspense with the surreal, offering a fresh take on horror that you won't want to miss. Join us as we dissect its themes, aesthetics, and how it pays homage to classic horror while forging its own path. So hit the notification bell to stay updated, and let's continue this journey through the shadows of horror cinema together. Until next time, stay sane, if you can.